I 27 female have been with my husband Robbie for 5 years and we've been married for 3 years. We have a happy marriage. But recently, things have been strained and I'm not sure what's happening. We've always been best friends as well as being a married couple. But over the last few months, I definitely feel that Roddy is talking to me less just about things and seems to speak to more of his friends, including my younger brother, Seb. Roddy has always been really good with Seb as he doesn't have many friends. And when we got together, Roddy took him under his wing and introduced him to his buddies, which really helped out Seb build his confidence. It was Roddy who suggested that Seb shortened his name from Sebastian to Sa as it seemed less formal, and not so old-fashioned. Roddy did the same thing with his name, as his parents called him Rodney, and he says that it's an old man's name. I've never called him anything other than Roddy or the affectionate pet names that we have for each other all through our relationship. Roddy and I have always valued having our own friends and our own interests because we both believe that if you spend all your time with your partner, then you have nothing to talk about when you're together. As you've spent your waking hours together, we both work for my parents' construction company as does Seb and my best friend, Sophie. Well, my dad's company is huge and so we work in different departments, but often meet for lunch if we're able to get away at the same time. Sophie and I work in accounts departments, which is how we became such close friends, and she's really more of a sister to me than a friend, and my parents treat her as such. Seb is training in management with father and Roddy works in construction, which gives him a really good body. Sometimes working all together causes problems. But as we don't really see each other at work, apart from the occasional lunch, we have time to be ourselves and not be distracted at work. I do occasionally walk past the area where the supplies are if I know Roddy is in the yard and not away at a job site, so I can get a cheeky peek at my husband. Sometimes I don't even let him know that I'm there. I guess you could say it's like my dirty little secret. Well, I first noticed that Roddy seemed distracted when he would come home from work, have a shower and say that he was going out with the boys, usually to have a beer and play some pool as it began to happen. More and more. I asked if I could come at times as I missed him in the evenings. Well, he actually got a little annoyed about that and said that we had agreed that we could not encroach on each other's relaxation time. I know that we agreed to that, but I never thought it would end up being nearly every evening. Some nights, I'm home alone just until midnight when he comes strolling and stinking of beer, and falls asleep into the bed. He's not touched me intimately for months, which is hurting me as I don't know why he's not wanting to be with me. I've tried to talk to him about it, but he looks at me like I've lost my mind and says that I'm making something out of nothing. He told me that he's tired and the projects that they're working on at the moment is really difficult and exhausting. Well, I know it is because I looked it up and so he's just felt he needed a little more time and moments to unwind with his friends, and he was sorry if I felt neglected. Wow. After I brought it up, things did improve slightly and we went on some dates and spent more time with just the two of us. That was nice, but it slowly slipped back to how it was before I complained. I decided that I needed to do something. And as I had not told anyone about the issues we were having, I asked Sophie to come around for a girls' night when Roddy was on yet another of his nights out and over a couple of glasses of wine. I told her what's going on. Sophie listened to me and did not interrupt. And I'm so grateful that she's such a good friend. She took a sip of her wine and said, "Have you ever thought that maybe another woman is in the picture? And that's why he's pulling away from you?" I wish I could say that it not crossed my mind that he might be seeing another woman. And that's why I was not allowed to go with him when they were out in their nights out. I was so conflicted and torn. I did not want to believe the man I love could be seeing another woman. The worst part would be that if he was meeting her when he went out with his boys' nights out, he was also with his friends. And so they would have to be covering for him. And that hurt even more thinking that it was only Roddy who was lying to me. Well, I got really upset at this point and Sophie had to console me for ages. She said I did not want to be upset when Roddy got home as we could go wrong. If I accused him of cheating on me, it would make things way worse if I was wrong. Even as upset as I was, I realized she was taking sins. And I asked her what I could do. Sophie asked me if I was 100% sure that I wanted to know what was going on. And if I was, she would help me get to the bottom of it one way or the other. I had to think about it for a while. But I decided that I had to find out as I could not live how we were living any longer and I wanted my marriage to go back to how it was. So we decided that we would tell Roddy that as Sophie and I both had vacation time. We were owing, it would like go to a girls' weekend somewhere to chill and have a pamper. He might wonder why I wanted to go somewhere without him. But if he was having an affair, then he would definitely not mind me going. Of course, well, he may also be okay with it just because he was a good husband. The plan was that we would not actually go anywhere but book a local hotel, a nice one. And then we would spy on Roddy. I know. Did not make a great wife, huh? But as I was upset and stressed about how things were, I needed to know Roddy agreed and sounded pleased that I would be taking time out with my friend to have some fun and relax, and I try not to worry that he was too keen for me to go. I needed to tell myself that nothing was certain and I would give Roddy the benefit of the doubt until I knew one way or the other Sophie. And I checked into the hotel and I texted Roddy to let him know we were settled in. He thought we were in the city hours away from home, so he would feel safe to do as he pleased. Now, all we had to do was be careful not to get caught watching him. If he was innocent and we were spying on him, then my marriage would be over and it would be my fault for not trusting him. The first day we drove past his regular spots in a hired car but didn't see anything. The second day I sent a text saying that things were fine with us and I hoped he was okay. He replied that he's been at work and tonight he was going out with the boys for a few drinks. And so I knew that if we were going to catch him doing anything he should not be doing, tonight is going to be the night. We waited until we knew that they would be out and we headed out too. We decided that if we saw anything we would go in and say we had come back early as Sophie was feeling ill. Well, we found something but not what I could have ever expected. We got to the bar and his friends were all there, but there's no sign of Roddy. Sophie told me now to do it. But I went in and asked where Roddy was using the excuse that we agreed upon. They looked surprised and said Roddy was not there and they had not seen him for weeks. He was always out to a stab somewhere or the other. His friends suggested that we even tried a different bar as he'd heard that they've been going there. There was something on his friend's face that made me think he knew something. But we left and headed to the bar. I didn't even need to go in as Roddy and Seb were sitting in the beer garden in the sun holding hands as I watched Roddy lean over and kiss my brother on the lips. Not a kiss you give to a friend, a kiss of a lover. I could not help myself. I let out a cry and they both turned and saw me. I was in panic mode and all I could say to Sophie was get me out of here. And without talking to either Roddy or Seb, we jumped in the car and left. We still had 2 days at the hotel. So we went there and I threw myself onto the bed and I sobbed. This all happened 2 days ago. I've been ignoring phone calls from Roddy and Seb ever since we have to leave the hotel today. So I need to make a decision on what to do. Sophie said a lot of people asked online for advice as it can be a way to get opinions of people looking from the outside. So here I am sharing my story with you. What would you do if you found your brother kissing your husband? Updates. Number 1, I am so stunned at all the replies to my post at the start. I tried to reply but it got to be too much and the number of negative messages made me feel so bad that I just couldn't read any more. To everyone who offered helpful advice. Thank you to those who suggested that it was probably my fault and that I obviously failed as a wife. Well, you know what, thank you for pointing out what I was already feeling. 2 days after we came across my husband and my brother in a, let's say, compromising situation, I had to bite the bullet and speak to Roddy. I could not just sit here hiding in a hotel room forever and we need to check out anyways whilst we were there. Sophie talked to me and tried to reassure me, but I was inconsolable. It was as though I could have dealt with Roddy cheating with a woman so much easier than with my brother. I don't even think it was become obviously my brother as a man. It was more that it was a member of my family. And if it had been my sister, which by the way, I don't have a sister, I would have been just as devastated. It seems like the ultimate betrayal. I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. The morning after it happened, I phoned my parents and tried to explain what happened. I could not get through the explanation and Sophie had to take over. My parents could not believe it. I thought they could not believe that Roddy and Seb had gone and betrayed me like this. But in the first conversation, it was that they could not believe that my brother was gay. I didn't know he was either, but looking back, he never showed any interest in dating and girls or anyone really. I would never in my wildest imagination have ever thought that Seb was hanging around with Roddy so much because he liked him more than a brother-in-law. I began to blame C more than Roddy. As in my mind, it was obvious that my brother had tricked Roddy into a relationship. It made sense that way as Roddy was married to me, so obviously he wasn't gay. It must be just a phase or maybe he had been vulnerable and Seb had taken advantage of him. After we checked out, Sophie drove me home, and I had to face my husband. The main thing I was grateful for was that Seb was not there. My parents still did not believe me, and in their minds, I had mistaken the whole thing and was causing trouble where they should not be any. I did ask them if they had talked to my brother, but they were very vague about that. When I got home, Sophie asked if I wanted her to come in, but I thought that this was something that I needed to deal with myself. I promised that I would call her later. She told me that if things get really awful, I could come and stay with her. I was so grateful to have a friend like her. Brody was home when I arrived and he looked up when I walked in but did not say a word. He was waiting for me to say the first word. I told him that we needed to talk and he needed to tell me the truth about everything. No more lies. I was still convinced that he would tell me that it was all a mistake, and Seb had tricked him into the whole thing. I guess I'm not as naive as I sound, but I can't believe that Roddy did this without tempting Seb. Roddy looked so beaten down by everything, but he began to talk and I wish it made things easier for me. But it did not. Roddy said that when he was younger, he had often looked at boys around him and thought that they were cute. But he just assumed that everyone felt this way. They really believed it was a normal part of growing up. And so he ignored the feelings that he had for his male friends and dated only women as was expected of him. But his friends and parents, well, when he met me, he thought that he got it all out of his system. Well, as we got on so well, right from the get-go, and we bonded really quickly. His parents liked me, and so he proposed to me even when he still found males attractive. Now and again, the main problem was that he found my brother attractive. Roddy said that in his brain, he could tell himself that he only thought of Seb as attractive as we look very similar. There's a strong family genetics. And so because he was marrying me and loved me, it was just normal that he would think that my brother, who looks so much like me, is a good-looking guy as well. I should say now that I never had any idea that my husband had this complex feeling, and I certainly did not know that my brother was gay. Seb had never said anything about it, and I thought we were close siblings. It hurt that he did not trust me enough to tell me. I mean, not as much as it hurt that he kissed my husband. I asked Roddy how far the fling had gone, and Roddy admitted that he had a physical relationship with Seb on numerous occasions over the years that we were married. I'm so shocked that no one ever knew. I mean, I lived with this man and I had no idea he was cheating on me with my own brother. I did not know what to say, and I got upset and told him how hurt I was that I never wanted to find out this way. Roddy pointed out I was spying on him, or I would not have found out as I did. But that's hardly the point, is it? I asked him if the fling with Seb was over and if we could go back to our lives. Now, this is where I need help. It's pretty obvious to me that things between Seb and Roddy was just an infatuation, and now that it's out in the open, all we had to do was work out what was wrong in our relationship and fix it no matter what. I love him and wanted to make things better. Roddy looked at me as if I've lost my mind and asked if I've been listening to anything he's been saying. He said that it felt that I have not taken a word that's come out of his mouth seriously, and he was just hearing exactly what I wanted to hear. He told me that he had realized over the last 6 months or so that he had been living a life that was not true to who he was, and that he had married me because he thought it was the correct thing to do. But all the time that we've been together, it's been a living lie. He should have accepted that he liked men, that he was gay from the get-go when he was young, and then he would have been living a truthful life. He said that he was sorry that he had hurt me, but he knew now that he wanted to be with Sap, that was where his heart really was. Well, he agreed that I was correct in assuming that at first it was just a fling away for him to experiment with his sexuality. But as time went on, he had fallen deeply in love with my brother and wanted to be with him. I was stunned and could not believe what I was hearing. I told him that I was not going to accept that, and he was not leaving me for my brother. I would not allow it. He got angry and said that there's nothing I could do about it, and I had to accept that our marriage was over. He said he never wanted to hurt me, but staying with me when he was in love with someone else was not going to be good for anyone. So I told him that he was obviously confused and needed to think about things and maybe talk to someone or have therapy just to make himself see that he was throwing everything away for a silly infatuation. With Sab, Roddy stood to his feet and said he was going to pack his bag and move out so I could work through things in my head and accept that we need to call time in our marriage. I followed him around the house asking him where he was going. This was his home, but he would not talk to me anymore and got into his car and left as he drove away. I stood in the driveway screaming "You're not gay" right after him as he drove away. And I don't know, I must have been having a panic attack or something, because the next thing I remember clearly was being in the hospital because I've been found collapsed outside the house by a neighbor, sobbing and yelling. I did not let the doctors call anyone for me. I was fed up with everything. Please, someone tell me that this is a bad dream and that I'm right. If he married me, he can't be gay. Can I refuse to let him divorce me or press charges against my brother for being emotionally abusive to me? I need advice updates. Number 2, I realized that I may have sounded like I was in my right mind in the last post, especially towards the end. But have you understand, I was in a really bad place and I've been betrayed by my husband and my own brother. I thought wrongly. It appears that once we had been apart a while, Ronnie would realize that he was making a horrible mistake and come back home, but he didn't. In fact, I'm being made out to be the bad guy in this whole situation, and it's not right. I've done nothing wrong since my last post. Quite a bit of time has passed as I have not been able to spend time putting this together with everything that's happening. And I'm really unhappy with my life and the way people are treating me. I came back to write this as unlike my family. People here actually support me and told me that I was not the person in the wrong. I mean, how could I be? My husband cheated on me with my brother. When I was at the hospital, they told me that I had a breakdown and they would not sign me out unless I got someone to come and get me and agree to see a doctor about my mental state. I was going to call Sophie, but I thought the best person would be my mother, as after all, she would be able to see that my brother had caused me to be seriously ill. If anyone could help me sort this out, it would be my mom. When she arrived, she was cross that I had not called her sooner and that I had made them worry when I was not at the house when she came to look for me after Roddy arrived at their house to stay for a few days. Yeah, you heard that right. My husband had to run to my parents and ask to stay with them alongside my brother together to make it worse. They allowed it and had to sit and talk to Roddy and said for hours about everything before coming to find me. They left me alone and suffering so they could comfort my cheating husband and my husband's stealing brother. I could not believe what I was hearing. I asked her what the hell she was thinking. How could she let Roddy in the house? When she cheated on their daughter, he had broken my heart and she had taken him and stepped into the family home. I told her I was being betrayed all over again and she said I was being melodramatic and that I had always been like this. I said that was not the case, how she would feel if this happened to her. She said she would be hurt and confused, but she would not have done what I've done. She tried to make excuses for Roddy and Seb, saying that Roddy had obviously been confused for a long time and he could not help who he was. She said that she knew that it was awful that my marriage was over, but I had to be realistic and find a way to sort all this out without causing the family to be ripped to pieces. So I pointed out that the only person causing this was Seb when he started sleeping with my damn husband. If it was not for Step, my husband would still be with me where he belonged. And I told my mother to leave and I would call Sophie to take me home if she's going to betray me like this too. I said she should maybe think about telling her son that he was the bad guy here and to get his claws out from my husband like a vulture so he could come back home. My mom looked at me with what I can only describe as pity and said, "Sweetheart, he's not coming home. He's finally allowed himself to be the real about his sexuality. He will not come home to you." I told her she was talking stupid and get the hell out of my sight. The doctors came rushing back because I was making such a noise and asked my mother to leave. I told them to call Sophie to come and get me, but they said they did not think I was ready to go home. And so I was put into a ward so a psychiatrist could see me and help me process what I was going through. Do you see what's happening? My family is trying to get me put into a crazy house so Seb and Roddy can be together. They are all out for me. They're all against me. This has been some sort of plan on the part of my brother to take everything I have, isn't it? He just is not like that. I was happy in that Roddy loves me. He loves me once I'm feeling more myself. I will talk to him and he will see that he is a fool to leave me. It took quite a while to convince the doctors that I was safe to be let out of the hospital. They seemed to think that I was going to hurt myself. And that, well, the shock of my husband cheating on me and leaving me had caused me to have a severe breakdown which led to depression and such. I was not depressed. I was angry. I had to play nice. And finally they let me go home. Sophie took me home. And when we arrived, it was obvious that Roddy had been back and taken more things from the house, leaving me with things that were mine and enough to furnish the home. There were also letters there waiting for me to divorce him from a divorce lawyer. I was so angry, but I had to keep my rage in check as I don't want to get sent back to the hospital because that is what they want. I will make them suffer for what they've done to me. Update number 3. Hey guys, I'm actually writing this 2 years. Well, after the above updates and oh dear lord, I read them back and realize that I sounded insane. I mean, to be fair, I was at the time. It's taken a long time and a lot of suffering for me to be. I don't know me again and everyone around me to get to where I am now. But things are better for months after I returned home. I did everything I could to ruin Roddy and Seb's life. I'm embarrassed to tell you what I did. But my therapist says it's good for me to continue healing and talk about it. Well, my mind could not cope with finding out about my husband being gay and loved my brother and it broke. That's the easiest way to explain it. I was like a different person. I refused to sign the divorce papers and I reported both Roddy and said to the police constantly for everything I could think of. I lied to my friends, families and colleagues that Roddy was an abuser and so many other evil things because my heart and my mind were broken. My family cut me off completely and I thought they were all against me, even when they were trying so hard to get help from me. I stopped working, stopped looking after myself and I lost pretty much everything the divorce went through as Roddy took me to court. And I was not in the sound mind when it happened. My solicitor, who my father paid for, must have thought he was representing a mad woman. In the end, I lost the house because I did not pay the mortgage or the bills thinking I was spitting Roddy. I lost my car and license because I was caught and prosecuted for drunk driving. I lost my friends, even Sophie, as I blamed them for betraying me, and I lost my own self-respect. The end came when I saw Seb and Roddy in town and I attacked Seb, which got me arrested, and I was court-ordered to get help. Well, I learned in my time in the hospital for the second time. And in therapy, I still have that. I have a lot of mental health issues that I've pushed down for a very long time. And finding out that my husband was leaving me pushed me over the edge. I blamed them both for such a long time. But eventually I realized that lots of people get hurt in relationships and don't even act like I did. I was right to be hurt and I was right to feel betrayed. But I should have handled it very differently from how I did. I think that it's obvious to most people. I've worked really hard to get better and to move on with my life. So this is where I'm at now. Roddy and Seb are still together and ridiculously in love. Looking at them, I can see that the love I thought I had with Roddy was one-sided and I was living in a reality inside my own mind since I've recovered. People have told me that the relationship I saw was not the relationship everyone else saw. They saw that we were distant and that Roddy looked unhappy. They also saw that my best friend, Sophie, was not good for me. You see, she knew the whole time. She knew that Roddy and Seb were together and she set me up to find out the way that I did. She played the loving friend, but all she did was feed the hate and anger because she was not the nice person I thought she was. My parents did not see that either until they realized she was the one providing me with the fuel for my firing rage. She's now gone from my life. My father fired her last I heard. She was living in another town, hundreds of miles away. I have a new relationship and I'm happy. I can see for myself now that my marriage to Roddy was not real. It was just that I wanted it to be perfect so badly. I didn't even see the cracks, but now I'm happy. So I leave this here as a lesson to people to not let anger take over and ruin their lives. I was lucky as my family never gave up on me. And even though they cut me off, they were waiting for me when I got to better. I need to end here because in 15 minutes, I'm walking down the aisle behind my brother as he gets married to the man of his dreams, Roddy. And I could not be happier for them both.